You're on a platform you can't see. One train is old. You, always on time, always familiar. The other is quiet, almost invisible. The train of the new you. Both doors slide open at the same second. The email ping, the bill drop, the tone in a voice that stings. Which platform you observe is the future you ride, not to now. Here's the shock most people miss. Reality doesn't wait for your 5-year plan. It doesn't respond to your vision board at 11:11. It collapses in the split. Second your attention lands, that flicker in your chest, that tightening in your jaw, that loop your mind rehearses without your consent. Those are not random reactions. They are selections. They are the switch locking in your timeline. And the truth is brutal, but liberating. Every day you think you're walking into a pre-written script. But you're not. You're the one writing it. With the signal you broadcast when you're not even aware. Today, we're going to expose the mechanics of that switch, how to catch the exact moment the old train arrives, and how to board the new one before it leaves the station. Because your future isn't hiding in a secret technique. It's waiting in the seconds you've been ignoring. Most people believe they wake up into reality. A stage already built, already scripted, waiting for them to walk on. They think life is happening to them outside of their control, but quantum mechanics whispers something stranger. You're not stepping into a ready-made world, you're selecting it. Every morning before your feet even touch the floor, your brain runs the same scan. The phone, the inbox, the problems waiting. And without realizing it, you've already cast a vote. That vote is not neutral, it's a signal. It tells the field, this is the timeline I recognize. Lock it in. And tomorrow, you do it again. And again, until the days stop feeling like choices. They feel like vu, different calendar. Same story. This is why new affirmations can feel empty. This is why new goals collapse. Because your nervous system is not listening to the words you speak. It's broadcasting the signal you've rehearsed the most. Effort then feels like running in sand. The more you push, the deeper you sink. Because the field isn't matching your intentions, it's mirroring your baseline. That's the hidden trap. Not the big choices you make once a year, but the tiny unnoticed choices you make every morning. They are the rails that keep the old train on time. But here's the opening. If you can break the illusion, if you can catch the moment the old vote is cast, you can flip the entire scene, not by pretending, not by forcing, but by changing the signal at its source. In physics, the strange discovery that what you look at doesn't just sit there, waiting to be measured, it changes. Because you looked. Thomas Young proved it with light. Modern labs prove it with particles, but you prove it with your life every single day. Right now, in the quantum field, there are countless versions of you. The calm you, the scattered you, the abundant, the one who keeps hitting the same dead ends. They all exist. Not as fantasy, but as potential. And the moment your attention lands, especially when it lands with emotion, one version collapses into form. This is why the morning scan is so dangerous. It doesn't just notice problems. It selects them. It collapses them into the timeline and when you repeat it tomorrow, your nervous system remembers. Your body becomes addicted to the familiar frequency, even when the familiar feels like stress, scarcity, or fear. That's the pull of the old train. Not because you're broken, not because you're cursed, but because the body loves what it knows. Here's the irony. You can spend hours, but if the rest of your day is spent rehearsing lack, the field listens to the majority vote. It mirrors the baseline, not the highlight. This is why trying harder feels exhausting. The universe isn't confused. It's obedient. It is simply reflecting the signal you keep broadcasting. And here's the breakthrough. The field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you observe. Not a passing glance, but sustained, emotionally charged attention. That is the switch. That is the mechanic behind your reality. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. The moment that decides your future is not dramatic. It isn't the car crash, the lost job, the sudden ending. It's smaller, quieter, almost invisible. It's the flicker, the drop in your stomach when the bill lands, the tightness in your chest when the email pings, the subtle heat in your face when someone's tone cuts sharp. Most people miss it, because the brain instantly creates a story. See, this always happens. I'll never get ahead. Nothing's changing, but here's the trap. That story is not truth. It's the old timeline trying to reattach itself. Think of it like standing on a train platform. It feels safe, familiar, predictable. Your body leans toward it without asking permission. But somewhere on another track, quieter, less demanding, the new self's train is waiting. Different scenery, different future. But it doesn't wait forever. If you don't notice the flicker, if you don't catch the micro drop, you board the old train without realizing it, and this is the exact second your power lives in. Not in the positive affirmation said over the noise. Not in the vision board pinned to your wall, but in the gap, the breath between trigger and choice. As Viktor Frankl once wrote, between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space is our power to choose our response. That space is gold. It is the steering wheel of your timeline. The body never lies before the mind invents its story. Before you label the moment as good or bad, the body broadcasts the signal. It's the knot in your stomach, the shoulders pulling tight, the shallow breath you didn't even notice you were holding. Most people ignore these cues. They live inside the story the mind tells after the body has already voted. But if you can reverse that order, if you can notice the body first, you unlock the gap. Here's the key. The moment you feel the drop, don't say, I am anxious. Say, I am experiencing anxiety. That single shift creates space. You are the one observing the state. And in that instant of awareness, the old train slows down. It can't pull you aboard without consent. Locate the feeling. Where does it sit? Your chest, your jaw, your stomach. Observe it like you're holding a magnifying glass. No judgment, just noticing. It is your alarm clock. It tells you with perfect precision. This is the second. The old signal is broadcasting. And once you catch it, you are no longer on autopilot. You are standing at the switch. You are free to choose again. Catching the old signal is only half the battle. The real power is in flipping it. Not tomorrow, because the body speaks louder than words. Stand up, move, roll your shoulders back, change your breathing pattern. Try this. Inhale slowly through your nose for 4, hold for 4, exhale through your mouth for 6. This isn't just calming down. It's sending a coded message to your nervous system. We're safe. We're not going back there. Even 90 seconds of this shift is enough to interrupt the old broadcast. The loop weakens. The new station has a chance to take over. Next, anchor the new state. Recall a moment, real or imagined, when you felt gratitude, trust, or calm certainty. See it. Feel it. Breathe in its rhythm. Ask yourself, if my future self were watching me in this moment, what would they choose to observe right now? That question lifts you off the old platform. It redirects the lens of attention, and in quantum terms, the field responds instantly because you're no longer observing the problem. You're observing possibility, and what you observe with emotion, the universe has no choice but to mirror. Here's the uncomfortable truth. It's not your best moments that build your reality. It's the baseline you return to when nothing special is happening. Think of it like the soundtrack in a film. If the music is suspenseful, even an ordinary walk down the street feels tense. If the music is light and joyful, the same scene feels full of possibility. Your nervous system is always playing a soundtrack. That soundtrack is your baseline frequency, and the quantum field is listening to it more closely than any affirmation you whisper over the noise. Neuroscience confirms this. Up to 95% of your thoughts and feelings are automatic, repetitive, subconscious. That means most of your reality isn't shaped by the vision board. It's shaped by the emotional tone you live in without noticing. If your baseline is stress, you can meditate for an hour in the morning and still broadcast stress for the other 20. 3, and the field will mirror the 20. 3. Not the 1. It's like throwing a bucket of clean water into a rushing river. The current doesn't change. The river keeps flowing in the direction it's been trained to go. This is why so many people feel stuck, not because they lack power, but because they've mistaken peak moments for transformation. The real shift doesn't happen in the highlight. It happens in the ordinary, in the way you breathe in traffic, in the way you stand in line at the store, in the way you meet your own thoughts, when no one else is watching. That is where the baseline moves. And once the baseline moves, the field cannot help but reorganize reality to match it. Here's the paradox. You don't shift your baseline by chasing highs. You shift it by feeding the new frequency into ordinary moments until your nervous system begins to prefer it. It doesn't take hours of meditation. It doesn't require retreats in the mountains. It takes 30 seconds, repeated, tiny recalibrations. Moments where you remind your body, this is who we are now. Bring calm into the traffic jam. Bring gratitude into the grocery store. Bring presence into washing dishes. Each time you do, you are training the signal, and the body learns fast. The more often you return to a state, the more familiar it becomes, and the subconscious doesn't cling to what is best. It clings to what is familiar. So your task is simple. Make coherence familiar. Make calm normal. Make trust the default. Do it long enough, and you won't need to remember to return to the new state. You'll find yourself living there. The background music will have shifted, and once the baseline shifts, the field has no choice but to mirror it back. That's why people who suddenly get lucky, in love, in career, in money, often say it wasn't luck, it was coherence. The signal stopped contradicting itself. The universe finally had something clear to respond to. The quantum field does not reward intensity. It rewards consistency. You can feel inspired for an afternoon. You can visualize with passion for 20 minutes. But if the rest of the day is static, contradiction, chaos, the field mirrors the static, not the highlight. Physicists call this principle coherence. When the parts of a system line up in harmony, the whole system becomes more powerful. In your body, coherence means this. Your thoughts are tuned to possibility. Your emotions are tuned to trust. Your body is broadcasting safety instead of fear. Most people live in incoherence. They want love, but feel unworthy. They want abundance, but keep scanning for lack. They want peace, but are addicted to urgency. It's like driving with your foot on the gas and the brake. The scenery changes, but the story stays the same. But when coherence clicks in, everything changes. The HeartMath Institute has shown that emotions like gratitude, love, and calm determination create smooth, rhythmic patterns in the heart. Those rhythms send ordered signals to the brain, and the brain then sends matching instructions to every cell. This isn't positive thinking. This is biology. This is electricity and magnetism. It is your body becoming an orchestra in perfect time. And here's the power of it. A steady, coherent signal cuts through noise faster than 1,000 inconsistent efforts. The field, it reflects coherence like a mirror, reflects light. Consistency stops being effort when coherence is in place, because you're no longer forcing alignment. You are alignment. Here's the mistake most people make. They think transformation is about one big breakthrough. A single meditation, a weekend retreat, a surge of willpower strong enough to erase the past. But the nervous system doesn't rewire through intensity. It rewires through repetition. Neuroplasticity proves it. Every time you return to a state, you strengthen the neural pathways that hold it. Every time you choose gratitude instead of fear, you lay another brick in the new identity. It isn't about force. It's about frequency. 5 short resets a day will reprogram you faster than one intense Zen hour. Because the brain listens to what you repeat, the body obeys what it rehearses most often. This is how identity is built. Not by pretending, not by shouting affirmations over static, but by showing up again and again in the micro. Moments when the old train pulls in. Each time you refuse to board, the track weakens. Each time you choose the new train, the track strengthens until one day, the old route feels foreign. Your body doesn't crave it anymore. Your subconscious stops calling it home. That is when the shift becomes permanent. Not a practice, not a performance, but a new default state. And when the default shifts, the field doesn't hesitate. It answers instantly because there is only coherence repeated until it becomes identity. Every transformation carries a danger zone. It's the moment where you've shifted your state. You feel lighter, clearer, more open, and then suddenly something small happens. An email, a tone in someone's voice, a bank notification on your screen. In seconds, you tell yourself, nothing's changed. Maybe I was just pretending. This is not failure. It's the pull-back effect. Your subconscious is wired for familiarity, not happiness. If stress, scarcity, or chaos was your old normal, your body will try to pull you back. Not to sabotage you, but to keep you safe inside what it already knows. The brain runs on prediction. It constantly compares what's happening now to what's happened before. And when it meets a state it doesn't recognize, it sounds the alarm. That alarm isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that you're crossing into the unfamiliar. Here's the critical piece. That sudden drop in emotion is the exact moment your observation starts to shift back to the old timeline. And, in quantum terms, where your attention goes, reality follows. It's like standing on two platforms. The old train pulls in loud, predictable. Demanding the new train is quieter, easier to miss. If you don't notice the flicker, you step back onto the old one out of habit, and the loop continues. But when you name it, when you say to yourself, "This is the pullback," you create a gap. And in that gap, choice returns. You don't have to fight it. You don't have to pretend it isn't there. You just have to catch it sooner each time. Feed it less energy, and redirect your observation before it locks in. Every time you do, the old track weakens. Every time you hold steady, the new one strengthens. And soon the pull back loses its grip altogether. Catching the pull back is step one. But the real transformation begins when you anchor the new state. When you stop visiting it like a tourist and start living in it like home. The question is, how do you lock it in? You use the body, the breath, and the imagination together. First, shift the body. Because physiology is the fastest doorway, stand taller. Change your breathing rhythm. The body broadcasts safety or fear before the mind even speaks. Second, anchor through memory. Recall a moment when you felt gratitude, trust, or calm power. If you don't have one, imagine it. The brain doesn't know the difference between real and vividly rehearsed. Feel it. See it. Breathe as if you are already there. Third, lock it with identity. Ask, how would the version of me who already lives this way think, breathe, walk, decide, right now? And then do it, not as performance, not as pretending, but as rehearsal until the body learns the script. Because here's the truth, the subconscious doesn't obey words, it obeys repetition. Every time you anchor the new state in the middle of the ordinary, you install it deeper into your baseline. At first, it feels like effort. Then it feels like practice. Then it feels like familiarity. And eventually, it feels like identity. That's when the work disappears. Because you're no longer trying to remember the new state. And once that happens, the field mirrors it instantly, without hesitation. There is a state beyond reaction, beyond trying to control, beyond even fixing yourself. It is the silent observer, the part of you that notices without panic, that watches without judgment, that refuses to instantly label a moment as good or bad. In quantum terms, this is pure awareness, the force that collapses potential into reality, not through struggle, but through clarity. Most people believe they are observing neutrally, but they are actually reacting. Every sigh, every replay of a conversation, every surge of frustration. It is all energy feeding the old signal. The silent observer, it doesn't mean you ignore life. It means you refuse to pour emotion into the thing you don't want to grow. When you pause the story, when you feel your feet on the ground, when you notice breath moving in and out, you return to the foundation of consciousness itself. From that foundation, you are no longer a character being dragged through a script. You are the director holding the camera. You can choose where to place the frame, and here's the paradox. When you stop fighting reality, when you stop reacting to every ripple, your signal becomes coherent, stable, clear, and coherence is magnetic. The field cannot resist organizing itself around stability. This is why some people seem lucky. They are not pushing harder. They are broadcasting steady clarity, and the world bends toward it. The silent observer is not indifference. It is the deepest form of power. Because it no longer leaks energy into resistance, it simply chooses where to look and lets reality reorganize itself in response. Every timeline you've ever lived still exists in the field, and each one is anchored by an identity, a version of you with its own habits, beliefs, and emotional home base. Even when you start to shift your frequency, the old identity doesn't vanish. It lingers like a jacket hanging in the back of your closet, worn, uncomfortable, too easy to slip back into. The subconscious loves what it knows. If it has rehearsed scarcity, conflict, or self-doubt for years, that becomes the safe zone, no matter how uncomfortable it feels. This is why transformation feels like a battle. The new identity is calling you forward, but the old one keeps pulling you back. Not because it is evil, but because it was built for survival. Repetition turned it into home. Here's the quantum problem. The field doesn't just read your conscious desire. It reads the identity you live in most of the time. You can visualize abundance for 20 minutes, but if you spend the rest of the day feeling like someone who never gets ahead, the field mirrors that identity, not the vision. So how do you release the old self? First, name it. The struggler, the fixer, the overlooked one. Naming it makes it visible, and what is visible can be released. Second, spot the hooks, the repeated arguments, the recycled worries, the familiar postures of the body. These are the signs the old jacket is slipping back on. Third, step into the new role. Now, not tomorrow. Not when it feels safe right now. Ask, how would the version of me I'm becoming respond here? And then breathe, speak, and decide as them. Finally, let the old self go with gratitude. It kept you alive. It taught you less, but it is no longer the one steering the train. Releasing is not about war. It's about thanks. And once you thank the old self, its grip loosens, space opens. The new signal roots itself deeper, and when the new identity becomes the dominant signal, the field doesn't hesitate. It reflects it. Not slowly, immediately. When the old identity is released, everything changes. Not because you force it, not because you perform it, but because the new self finally has space to breathe. At first, living as the new version of you feels deliberate. You catch yourself. You redirect. You rehearse. It feels like training wheels on a bicycle. But repetition turns rehearsal into rhythm. The nervous system stops resisting. The body starts recognizing the new frequency as home. And then it happens. You wake up one day, and you don't have to remember to practice anymore. You are already in it. This is the moment transformation becomes effortless. When abundance feels normal instead of distant, when calm feels natural instead of borrowed, when trust feels like gravity instead of struggle. That is the new normal. And once you arrive there, manifestation is no longer something you do. It's something you wake up inside of every day. The scenery shifts on its own. People respond differently. Opportunities appear without force. Life begins to feel as though it is moving with you, not against you. Because the field isn't deciding for you. It never was. It is only mirroring the identity you live in most of the time. And when the new identity becomes dominant, the field has no choice but to reflect it back. Clearly, consistently, undeniably. This is the part that frustrates so many. They feel the breakthrough. They taste freedom for a few days, Everything feels lighter, easier, aligned. And then something small happens. An unexpected bill, an argument, a delay. And before they realize it, they've snapped back. Why does this happen? Because the subconscious runs on familiarity. It does not care if you were happy or miserable. If stress was your baseline for years, your system calls stress home. Even when you consciously want change, your body quietly tries to return to the familiar. This is why people relapse into old patterns. It isn't weakness, it's programming. The pull of the past is strong because it has been rehearsed. It's been wired into your cells, your hormones, your muscles, your posture. But here's the key. Snapping back doesn't mean you've failed. It means the old train is still running its schedule, and your job is not to destroy it overnight. Your job is to notice it sooner, feed it less energy, and return to the new track again and again. Every time you recover faster, you weaken the grip of the past. Every time you hold the new state longer, you strengthen the future. The snapback is not proof you're stuck. It's proof you're in the middle of rewiring. And if you persist, if you keep choosing the new signal, the old pattern eventually collapses. It loses its momentum, and it can no longer pull you back. That is how you stop relapsing into the old self. Not by force, not by shame, but by choosing again and again until the new normal becomes unshakable. Every thought, every choice, every outcome in your life is filtered through one thing. Your state. Your state decides what you notice. Your state decides whether you see an obstacle or an opening. This is why the same event can collapse into two completely different realities. One person loses a job and spirals into fear. Another loses the same job and sees an invitation to reinvent. The outer event was identical. The difference was state. Dr. Andrew Huberman calls this state control the steer because wherever your state points, your mind, your body, and your choices follow. Most people don't realize it, but they hand over the wheel dozens of times a day to stress, to frustration, to irritation, to fear. And when those states take the wheel, the old train runs its track on schedule. But when you reclaim the wheel, everything changes, because in quantum terms, your state is the broadcast that tells the field which version of reality to collapse. The field is not listening to your wish list. It's listening to the frequency you are radiating right now. This means you don't need to predict every step of the future. You don't need to control every variable. You only need to master one thing, the state you're in, because from that state, your observation shifts, your choices shift, your timeline shifts, and reality has no choice but to follow the signal you're broadcasting. The universe is not a judge. It is not a parent, rewarding or punishing you. It is a mirror, and a mirror has no preference. It doesn't choose what to show. It only reflects what stands before it. Most people try to change the reflection after it appears. They wait until the result shows up, and then they scramble to adjust their behavior, their words, their effort. But the mirror doesn't respond to effort after the fact. It responds to the image you project before the reflection is cast. This is why affirmations often fail. You can say, "I am abundant," 1,000 times. But if your body is still broadcasting fear when you pay the bill, the mirror doesn't hear the words. It reflects the fear. The field listens to your dominant signal, not the spike of positivity, not the momentary high, but the baseline you return to again and again. Think of it like standing before an actual mirror. You can smile for a second, but if you frown right after, the mirror won't keep reflecting the smile. It will instantly match the frown. Reality works the same way. It reflects the signal you're holding now, and it keeps reflecting it until you change the image you're broadcasting. The mirror effect is not meant to punish you. It is meant to reveal you, to show you exactly what you're sending out so you can adjust the source instead of chasing the reflection. Once you understand this, you stop trying to force outcomes. You stop begging the mirror to change. You change the image instead, and the reflection has no choice but to follow. The field doesn't respond to flashes of brilliance. It responds to stability. Most people bounce between signals. Gratitude in the morning, stress by noon, calm after meditation, panic when the message arrives, hope on Sunday, dread on Monday. The result? A chaotic broadcast. Mixed signals. Contradictory instructions sent into the field, and the field reflects the confusion. One step forward, one step back. Progress that feels temporary, shifts that fade as fast as they appear. But when you hold a signal steady, when you can remain coherent even in ordinary moments, the field has no choice but to reorganize around that stability. Stability doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean you never feel fear again. It means you recover faster. You return to the chosen state more quickly. You stop letting temporary emotions drag you fully back into the old self. Think of it like tuning a radio. If you stay on the same frequency long enough, the static disappears. The music comes through clear. The same is true here. Hold the new signal. Even if it feels subtle, even if it feels fragile, every moment you sustain it, you strengthen it, and soon the body, the mind, the nervous system, they all agree. The broadcast becomes coherent, consistent, unshakable. That's when the breakthroughs stop fading. That's when results no longer slip away. Because reality is no longer reflecting a mixed message. It is locked on to the new frequency and organizing itself accordingly. The universe doesn't test you with grand events first. It trains you with the small things, the traffic jam, the slow line at the store, the unanswered message, the tone in someone's voice that lingers a little too long. These are not random annoyances. They are training grounds, opportunities to catch the micro drop before it locks in. Most people waste these moments. They clench their jaw. They let the body broadcast stress, forgetting that even the smallest reaction is a vote for the old timeline. But the ones who shift fastest are the ones who use the ordinary to reprogram, the ones who bring presence into traffic, who bring patience into waiting rooms, who bring gratitude into grocery lines. Because every time you flip a trigger into training, you are teaching your body a new normal. You are installing coherence into situations that once pulled you back automatically. And here's the secret. If you can hold coherence in the small moments, the big ones can't shake you. If you can catch the state shift when the bill lands, you'll be ready when the promotion arrives. If you can notice your breath in traffic, you'll be steady when the opportunity of a lifetime opens. Life is always offering you practice. Every irritation is a doorway. Every flicker is an invitation, not to collapse the old reality again, but to choose the new one until the choice becomes automatic. This is how the future stops feeling like a possibility and starts feeling like inevitability. Up to 95% of your day is not being lived by choice. It is being run by autopilot. The subconscious is a master of repetition. It memorizes patterns of thought, records emotions as chemical imprints, and then plays them back automatically. This is why you don't need to relearn how to walk each morning, but it is also why you repeat the same arguments, the same worries, the same subtle reactions, even when you swore you wouldn't. The body becomes addicted to its most rehearsed emotions. If stress has been the soundtrack, the body craves stress. If scarcity has been the pattern, the body looks for lack, not because you are negative, but because the subconscious calls familiarity safety, even if the familiar is pain. This is why effort alone often fails. You can set goals, read affirmations, visualize harder. But if 95% of your system is running the old script, the field receives mixed signals. You end up decorating the same life with new words, new plans, new wallpaper. But the foundation never changes. Here's the good news. Autopilot doesn't mean destiny. It means conditioning. And conditioning can be rewritten. Every time you catch the body craving the old state and refuse to feed it, you are reprogramming. Every time you install a new signal in a moment where the old one used to run, you are breaking autopilot. Do it once, the effect is small. Do it again and again, and the subconscious learns a new pattern. The autopilot changes course, and the 95% that once held you back now begins carrying you forward. That is when transformation accelerates, not because you're working harder, but because the automatic parts of you are finally aligned with the future you're choosing. Every thought is fuel. Every emotion is energy. And the question is simple. Where are you feeding it? Most people don't realize it, but they spend their days feeding the past. They replay the old argument. They tighten their chest at the thought of bills or deadlines. Each reaction is energy poured into an outdated signal. Each thought is attention placed on an old track, and the field doesn't argue. It simply reflects the timeline you keep feeding. Imagine two fires burning before you. One is the old self, scarcity, stress, fear. The other is the new self, abundance, calm, possibility. Both fires are waiting, and every thought, every action, every emotional choice is a log in one of them. The fire you feed grows brighter. The one you starve dies out. The mistake most people make is thinking they can keep fueling the old fire and still expect the new one to blaze on its own. But the field doesn't respond to intentions. It responds to investment. Where you place your energy is where you place your life. This is why catching the micro moments matters so much. It's not about pretending to feel good all the time. It's about refusing to pour logs on the fire of the past and choosing, again and again, to feed the flame of the future instead. Do this long enough, and the old fire goes out on its own, not because you fought it, but because you stopped giving it fuel, and the new fire, the new self, becomes the only light the field can reflect back. The greatest mistake in manifestation is waiting. Waiting for proof, waiting for the money, waiting for the opportunity, waiting for reality to change before you do. But the field doesn't mirror your waiting. It mirrors your being. The shift happens when you stop living as the person who hopes and start living as the person who already is. Ask yourself, how would my future self breathe right now? How would they speak? How would they decide in this moment? And then do it. Not as a performance, not as a trick, but as a rehearsal until the body no longer knows the difference. The subconscious doesn't understand language. It understands repetition. When you act, breathe, and choose as the future self long enough, The nervous system accepts it as true, and the field has no choice but to mirror it back. This is why you don't wait to feel abundant until money arrives. You generate abundance in small choices now. This is why you don't wait to feel love until the partner arrives. You live in the energy of love now. This is why you don't wait for confidence until the opportunity comes. You carry the posture of confidence now, because once the signal shifts, the external must reorganize. It is not magic. It is mechanics. Live from the future self now, and the future self becomes your present reality. One of the biggest mistakes in manifestation is pretending. Forcing a smile when the body is broadcasting fear. Shouting affirmations over a nervous system that feels unsafe. Layering positivity on top of panic. It doesn't work. Because the field is not listening to the mask. It's listening to the broadcast underneath. When you say, "I'm abundant," but your chest is tight with worry, the field doesn't hear the words. It hears the tension, and it mirrors the contraction back. This is why effort feels like running in sand. The harder you push, the deeper you sink. Because the signal hasn't changed, only the performance has. Authenticity is the doorway, not pretending to feel better, but noticing the state you're in and shifting it honestly. If fear is present, name it. If anxiety is rising, observe it. If stress is pulling at you, acknowledge it. Not as identity, but as experience. Because the moment you name it, you create distance. And in that distance, you can breathe. You can shift. Real power doesn't come from pretending you're already there. It comes from choosing, moment by moment, to align your body, your breath, and your focus with the signal you want to live in. The field responds to truth. Not the mask, not the noise, but the honest signal you sustain long enough for it to reorganize reality around you. Most people think manifestation means radiating joy, forcing gratitude, chasing constant highs. But here's the paradox. Neutrality is often stronger than positivity. Why? Because neutrality is stable. It isn't pretending. It isn't trying to manufacture emotion on top of chaos. It's simply refusing to feed the old story. Neutrality sounds like this. I see the bill. I feel the flicker. But I'm not collapsing into panic. Neutrality says, I don't have to fake joy. I just won't give my energy to fear. And in that choice, you keep the signal steady. Your body stays calm. Your breath stays open. Your focus stays free. The field doesn't require you to be ecstatic. It doesn't demand constant bliss. It only responds to the baseline you hold most often. And neutrality is a strong baseline, because it keeps you from swinging wildly between highs and lows. It keeps the channel clear, so the new frequency has space to root itself. From neutrality, gratitude feels real. From neutrality, abundance feels natural. From neutrality, love feels safe. So don't underestimate the quiet power of calm presence. It may not look dramatic. It may not, but neutrality is the bridge that carries you out of the old identity and into the steady signal the field cannot ignore. Transformation doesn't come from a single lightning strike. It comes from steady sparks, repeated until they light a fire. Most people chase intensity. They want the big breakthrough, the dramatic awakening, the one meditation that erases years of patterns. But the nervous system doesn't change that way. It changes through rhythm, through repetition, through consistency, one calm breath, practiced 5 times a day, rewires faster than 1 hour of forced positivity, because the brain is trained by what is frequent, not what is occasional. Think of it like lifting weights. One heavy workout doesn't make you strong. It's the steady repetition, day after day, that builds the muscle. The same is true here. Every time you return to gratitude for 30 seconds, you carve a new groove. Every time you bring calm into the middle of chaos, you deepen the signal. Every time you notice the flicker and choose differently, you shift the track. The power is not in what you do once. It's in what you repeat until it becomes automatic. This is why coherence eventually feels effortless. Because once the system is trained, intensity may spark the shift, but consistency locks it in. Many people believe the universe is testing them, that every setback is a trial, that every delay is a lesson, that life is measuring their worthiness. But that's not how the field works. The field is not a teacher with a red pen. It's not a parent grading your progress. It's not a trickster hiding blessings behind obstacles. The field doesn't test you. It mirrors you. If the signal is chaotic, the reflection looks like chaos. If the signal is calm, the reflection organizes around calm. If the signal is fear, life bends to confirm the fear. This isn't punishment. It's precision. It's the exactness of a mirror showing you what you're broadcasting. And that mirror is immediate. Not tomorrow. Not next month. Now. This is why catching the flicker matters. Because in the second your attention collapses on the old story, the reflection begins not as destiny, but as obedience. And the moment you shift the signal, the mirror shifts too. The reflection follows the image you project always, without fail. So stop asking, why is the universe testing me? It isn't. It's showing you where your attention is anchored. And the moment you change that anchor, the scene changes. Not because you begged for it, but because the mirror cannot refuse to reflect. Here's the truth. You don't need hours of meditation to change your signal. You need 90 seconds. 90 seconds is enough to interrupt the old broadcast and install a new one, because the body listens faster than the mind. Here's how it works. Step 1. Shift the breath. Inhale slowly through your nose for 4. Exhale gently through your mouth for 6. Repeat. Step 2. Shift the body. Unclench the jaw. Roll the shoulders back. Open the chest. Send the signal, we are safe. Step 3. Anchor the state. Recall a moment, real or imagined, where you felt trust, gratitude, or calm strength. Feel it in your body. Breathe as if you're already there. Step 4. Lock the focus. Ask yourself, if my future self were watching me right now, what would they choose to see? What would they observe? By the end of 90 seconds, the signal has shifted. The nervous system has recalibrated. The old train has been left behind, and the new one has already departed. It's not bypassing. It's physics. Because the moment your attention collapses on a new state with emotion, the field reorganizes. Do this once, and you'll feel lighter. Do this daily, and you'll rewire the baseline. Do this consistently, and your entire life begins to reorganize around coherence instead of chaos. Your life is not waiting somewhere in the distance. It is collapsing right here, right now, in this second, the old you, the new you. Both trains are always at the station, and the choice is not hidden. It's in the flicker of your chest when fear rises. It's in the breath you take before you react. It's in the observation you hold long enough to lock in the The universe is not against you. It's not testing you. It's not delaying your dream. It is mirroring you with perfect precision. And the mirror does not hesitate. It reflects whatever image you project. So the question is simple. Which self are you feeding? Which fire are you tending? Which train are you boarding when the doors open? Not someday, not when it feels safe, now. Because now is the only place the field listens. Now is the only point where reality collapses. Now is the only doorway where the old story ends and the new story begins. You don't need to wait for proof. You don't need to beg for signs. You don't need to decorate the old room with new wallpaper. You only need to choose and choose again until the choice is no longer. It is identity. It is home. And once the new signal becomes home, life does what it has always done. It answers. It mirrors. It reorganizes itself around the self you decided to live in. 2 trains, 1 choice. Every moment, every breath, the power has always been yours. You were never powerless. You were never waiting on permission. You were never trapped inside a fixed destiny. Every day, every hour, every second, the switch has been in your hands, your attention, your observation, your signal. That is the architect of your reality, and now you see it. The trains don't stop coming. The field doesn't stop listening. It only waits for you. So when the next flicker comes, when the old thought, the old fear, the old tension tries to pull you back, you will know. This is not truth. This is the old train, and you don't have to board it, because the new self is already here, already breathing, already broadcasting, already waiting for you to step inside. Change your attention, change your energy, and watch reality answer.